This is KD Drummond of bloggingtheboys.com and SB Nation, and we're here to talk about the curious case of Anthony Spencer. Now, we're not going to be talking about some 80-year-old man that starts life as an old man and then turns into a baby as he gets older. We're going to be talking about the 2007 first-round draft pick that seems to finally have come into his own over the last couple seasons in Dallas. Now, obviously, Spencer has been an enigma of sorts. He had an issue back in 2010 when the entire team seemed to put on Coach Wade Phillips. He was actually one of the players that admitted that he wasn't trying his ultimate pinnacle of effort, but you know, a lot of that is behind us. As we saw the 2010 season, the whole team seemed to put on the coach. But he did, prior to that, earn the nickname of Almost Anthony. And our question now is, for the Cowboys, the biggest question of their all-season really, is whether or not they're going to re-sign Anthony Spencer. He was clearly the Cowboys' best defender in 2012. Obviously, Sean Lee was hurt. DeMarcus Ware, he played the entire season, although he was hampered by a myriad of arm injuries, as well as his neck stingers and hamstring injuries, and he was just pretty much beat up the entire season. So he probably had his worst career season in general, but he was still productive enough to be known as the best defender on the Cowboys team. But Spencer did turn in his first Pro Bowl performance. He was named as an alternate. He was snubbed. He should have been named originally when you hear some of the stats, and I'm going to give you a little bit later on. But again, the question is, was it enough? Has he shown enough for the Cowboys to want to sign him? A couple of collateral questions to that would be, does he even want to come back to Dallas? And then if the two sides both really want to make that agreement, does Dallas actually have the cap room in order to make that deal happen? So right now, everybody's saying the right things. Anthony Spencer's agent, Jordan Boy, who he signed with right before that he signed the franchise tender last season, he's saying that Anthony Spencer wants to be back. Stephen Jones was quoted as saying, hey, we're not in the practice of letting good players get away, and Anthony Spencer is one of those good players. And then recently, Monty Kiffin seemed to hint and hedge a little bit about whether or not he saw Spencer in the scheme, in the grand scheme of things for the defensive end position. He didn't really name that as one of the lead things that he's going to need heading into the season. Now, that might mean that Spencer is a solution, or it might mean that he already thinks he has what he needs in somebody like Tyrone Crawford or Sean Lissamore or Jason Hatcher in order to play that strong side defensive end position. What I will tell you is this. Let's look at some plays that'll actually show what Spencer can do as a four-man line member. And that's one of the things that Rob Ryan did on a very frequent basis. We ran a base 3-4, but you can also see that the Cowboys in their nickel situations, they would oftentimes go to a four-man line. It was kind of a staple, and Spencer really showed his versatility, not only in being able to play up and down the line, but also in the department of, he is the one player that seemed to get crucial sacks at crucial times in the games. And these four plays over the last couple seasons will definitely illustrate that for you, for those of you that are wondering whether Spencer really had the impact that everybody's making it out to seem. He did. The first play I want to look at is from Week 14 against Cincinnati. There's about 4:40 left on the clock. It's in the fourth quarter. The Cowboys are down by 2. They just scored a touchdown to cut the 9-point lead. Cincinnati was whooping them the entire game, but they just scored to cut the lead to 2. Cincinnati had the ball back. It was 3rd and 5. And in this play, like I said, they're in a four-man line. Now, if you look here, the Cowboys leave the center uncovered. They have nobody shooting either one of the two A gaps, or at least lined up in either of the two A gaps. They do have Jason Hatcher shaded inside the tackle, and then both DeMarcus Ware and Victor Butler are lined up as 7 techs, and Spencer's actually in a 2-point stance in the 3-technique gap. So he uses a swim move on this play. He swims into the A gap, and he pretty much makes a fool out of stud rookie guard Kevin Zeitler. He was actually a prospect that a lot of Cowboys fans wanted to see them look towards before we gave up our second-round pick for Mo Claiborne. But you can see here that Spencer clearly beats him. He gets in on Andy Dalton up the middle, gets a sack, forces a 4th down. Dallas then took the ball, marched down the field on the back of DeMarco Murray, got into position for a game-winning Dan Bailey kick, and they won the Jerry Brown game. If you remember, this was right after we lost Jerry Brown to the horrific accident, drunk driving accident at the hands of Josh Brent. On the very next play that we're going to look at, we're going to actually move forward just 1 week to the Pittsburgh game. This time, we're in a situation where the game is tied at 24. There's 1 minute and 18 seconds left in the fourth quarter. The game was back and forth, seesaw battle. Pittsburgh had infiltrated Cowboys Stadium, and it sounded like a 50-50 split as far as who the home team was. On this particular play, Spencer's lined up as a 5 technique left defensive end in a 4-man line. Both of the DTs on this play, both of the tackles are actually in a 3 technique position. Spencer jab steps to the outside of the tackle, and then he crosses a face of him. And this is in a stunt with Sean Lissamore, who had actually just gotten the sack on the play before. Spencer then bowls over the tackle who's on his bad foot, and when Lissamore's outside pressure forces Big Ben back into the pocket, that's when Anthony Spencer is able to take him down. You can see in these first 2 plays, as well as the next 2, you can see the versatility that Spencer has in a 4-man line for the Cowboys. And you can see how this is something that you could obviously witness Monty Kiffin be able to, take great measure to have the Cowboys performing at their utmost when he goes to his green package, which is all pass rushers. The third play I want to look at comes from the final game of the 2012 season, Week 17 against the Redskins. The Cowboys are in their comeback. They're now down by 3 points with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Washington is actually in a 3rd and 10 position from inside field goal range, which means that if they kick the field goal successfully, then it's now the Cowboys need a touchdown to win as opposed to a field goal to tie, changing the dynamic of the game. Now, DeMarcus Ware is in a 7 technique position in a 2-point stance, standing up, which is kind of like the Leo position in a 4-3 alignment that you'll be studying that the Seahawks use very regularly with Chris Clemens. Now you see Jason Hatcher is going to be in a 1 technique stance. He's going to be shaded to the right shoulder of the center, while Anthony Spencer is, again, in this play, he's at a defensive tackle position as a 3 tech. Victor Butler on this play is actually in a wide 9 position, so you can see it's a spread out line here. And Spencer is originally rebuffed by the guard on the play after the snap, and then he's actually chipped by the center. DeMarcus Ware's pressure would push the left tackle back into the pocket where Robert Griffin III wanted to step up. Now that bumps RG3 back a bit, and then Spencer uses his dynamic closing speed to loop around the end and take Griffin down, which forces a punt, gives Dallas a ball back. Unfortunately, they weren't able to capitalize. This was the series preceding Tony Romo's 3rd interception of the game, when Rob Jackson leaped up and intercepted the pass that was intended for DeMarco Murray. And, what happened next? They marched down the field, got a defensive penalty, and then punched it in for Alfred Morris's 200th yard of the game. Disappointing extremely. For the final 4th play that I want to look at, I'm going to go back to last year, Week 3 against these same Redskins. 38 seconds left on the clock. This is a game where this is the position following Tony Romo's miraculous escape, roll to the right, 3rd and 21, completion of Des Bryant on D'Angelo Hall that put the Cowboys in a position to take the lead. Again in a 4-man line, this time with DeMarcus Ware and Anthony Spencer lined out wide, and Spencer's outside the close tight end on the strong side. Now, Jay Ratliff, who we missed, is a strong side 3 technique on this play, and Victor Butler is in as a weak side 1 technique. Now, Spencer lets the tight end release without a chip. Pure speed rush right here. He races around the right tackle just as DeMarcus Ware is putting a mean spin move on the left tackle that flushes Grossman out of the pocket. Now, Spencer again shows his elite closing speed and chases him down from behind, forcing a strip sack, not necessarily winning the game, but closing the game out for the Cowboys. And you can clearly see by the plays that we just examined, not only is Anthony Spencer coming up with great plays, he's coming up with them in crucial situations, and you can't underscore the fact that the Cowboys seem to finally have somebody on their team that can make these plays in crucial game-winning, game-closing situations. Now, obviously, your average fan is going to tell you that the highlights and sacks are the most important things that a player can have that determines their worth, and they're right in a sense, so they're very impactful plays, but from a defensive pass rusher point of view, there are also other things that we like to call advanced metrics that I think better formulate the overall opinion on what a player is worth. And I can guarantee you that when a team is deciding whether or not they want to sign a player, these are the things that they really look at in addition to just the glory stats such as sacks. Now, in addition to sacks, there are other types of pressures called quarterback hits and quarterback hurries. And this is actually where Anthony Spencer earned his nickname as Almost Anthony. If you look at the graphic back in 2009, he had 25 quarterback hits and 23 quarterback hurries that did not result in sacks. So he was literally always a step away from getting the sack back in 2009. But when you further look, you do see that in his 2010 and 2011 season, he really wasn't anywhere near being upper echelon when it came to rushing the passer. And this is a little bit of cause for pause for people that want to look at his stats and only look at the last year when you're saying, oh, well, he had a tremendous year with 11 sacks on only 299 pass rushes. So when you're looking at this, you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt and say, okay, amongst 3-4 outside linebackers, he seemed to do good. He had 2 good seasons in 09 and 12, and then he had 2 really mediocre seasons in 2010 and 2011. So the truth is somewhere in the middle there, that Anthony Spencer is an average pass rusher. It's not as bad as his season was in, rushing the passer back in 2010, where out of all edge rushers, he ranked 40th. And when I say all, I mean all 3-4 outside linebackers and 4-3 defensive ends. So you're talking about 64 starting positions in the NFL. He ranked 40th back in 2010 as far as his pass rush productivity. But again, when you look at this past season and you see that he has 11 sacks on only 299 pass rush attempts, you're looking at something where if you were to say, okay, well, how does that compare to your average 4-3 defensive end and how many pass rush snaps they get on a season? They get almost 500 per season. That was the average for this past season. If you compare to Anthony Spencer's numbers, you're going to be looking at an 18-sack season. It's pretty much the equivalent of what he had. Obviously, he'll be more tired if he's pass rushing as compared to, run stopping and setting the edge and things of that sort, always going upfield. But you can kind of get the idea that he was a 16 to 18 sack guy in a different type of defense. Now, the plus for Anthony Spencer is that he is by far the best run-stopping edge rusher that there is in the game. Over the last 4 seasons, he's ranked 3rd in 2009, 3rd in 2010, 2nd in 2011, and 1st in 2012 at what we call stops. Now, stops are when you keep the offense from gaining a certain percentage of yardage on a run play that would make the play successful. If it's first down, you have to stop them from getting 40% of the necessary yards to get the next first down. So if it's 1st and 10 and they get 3 yards, it was a successful defensive play. If they get 4 yards, it was not a successful defensive play. So first down is 40%, second down is 60%, third and fourth down is 100%. And as you can see, he is elite at stopping the run. So you always have to throw that into the argument that he puts his defense in a great position to get off the field by stopping the opposing team on the early downs. So, what does this all mean for Anthony Spencer and his prospects for the upcoming season? We're about to hit free agency. The scouting combine is coming, and this is really when the agents and GMs under the table start to discuss which teams are going to be interested, and I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of teams lined up for Anthony Spencer. Start off with New Orleans and Rob Ryan. Obviously, he's going to need a 3-4 outside linebacker for his scheme once he moves down there. Cleveland and Philadelphia, their team's moving to a 3-4 defense, and they have oodles of cap space. They could make a run at them. Arizona, Baltimore, 4-3 teams that need rushers, such as like Atlanta. They could all be looking at Anthony Spencer as the primary target on the field this season, in the offseason. So there's going to be a lot of competition, and as such, you would expect that if the Cowboys are going to make a move in this direction, they're going to have to pony up for him. Now, I did all the research so you wouldn't have to, and doing a compare and contrast on some recent signings by players a little bit younger than Spencer, but again, he will be 29 for the entire 2013 season, so it's not as if he's going to be an old player by any stretch of the imagination for the first 4 years of the contract. But in comparison, it looks like he could probably earn a 5-year contract worth about $57 million with about $27 million guaranteed. Now, what exactly does that entail? You're going to be looking at something like, like I said, the guaranteed $27 million, but the Cowboys are going to be trying to do what they did with Brandon Carr and fit that underneath the cap neatly. So you could easily see something like a $12 million signing bonus with a $1 million base salary for 2013, and then an inflated base salary for 2014, which is something like $14 million, which the Cowboys know they're going to renegotiate next year and then spread out the signing bonus again as another prorated bonus. This would actually allow the Cowboys to sign a player of Anthony Spencer's caliber for something like a $3.4 million cap hit in the first year and only $7.4 million in the second year. And then by the time you get to 2015, Dallas has a lot of expiring contracts that are going to be coming up. Miles Austin, Jay Ratliff, DeMarcus Ware, players of that ilk are all going to have contracts that are expiring. So you could see how they could fit this into the cap if they really want to keep Anthony Spencer. Once again, it's KD Drummond of Blogging the Boys. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, SBN Blogging the Boys, and don't forget about our other channels, SBN NFL and SB Nation. Salute.